It was the middle of the night when Elon Musk sat hunched over the cluttered desk in his office. The faint hum of the overhead lights was the only sound that filled the room, as numbers, figures, and frantic emails blinked across his screen. His eyes, bloodshot from countless hours of little sleep, stared at the screen as though hoping the data would change on its own. Tesla was bleeding money, and time was running out. Elon had always been a risk-taker. In fact, it was his relentless ambition that had gotten Tesla to this point. But now, the stakes were higher than ever. The car company that was supposed to change the world was on the brink of collapse, and no one, not even Musk himself, could say for sure if it would survive. The stock prices were plummeting, production was lagging, and the Model 3, the car that was supposed to save Tesla, was nowhere near the numbers needed to keep the business afloat. Musk slouched in his chair, rubbing his temples. The stress of running Tesla, SpaceX, and juggling personal responsibilities had finally caught up with him. There were days when he felt like he was losing his grip on everything. Every decision seemed to lead to another problem. He could feel it in his gut. Tesla was in trouble. Real trouble. The phone buzzed on his desk, another urgent message from his board of directors. His heart sank. He opened it, expecting the worst, and his eyes quickly scanned the text. Elon, we need an answer. Investors are losing faith. We can't keep going like this. What's your plan? Elon could feel the pressure mounting. This wasn't just about a company anymore, this was about his legacy, about everything he'd worked for. His dreams of sustainable energy, of transforming the way the world used transportation, were hanging by a thread. What do you do when you have nothing left to give and everything you built is about to come crashing down? He stared at the screen. The question echoed in his mind. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Musk had no answers. Only more questions, and the gnawing feeling that time was running out. Across the factory floor, things were just as bleak. The Model 3 assembly line was in chaos. The workers, despite their best efforts, couldn't keep up with production demands. And every time Elon visited, the sense of urgency in the air was palpable. There were machines malfunctioning, parts missing, and promises made to investors that were looking more and more like empty words. Elon, we need help, said Jerome, one of the engineers, his voice cracking with frustration. We're working 16-hour days, but it's still not enough. We're drowning in parts we can't assemble. We can't meet the targets. Elon didn't respond right away. Instead, he walked over to the line, peering down at the half-assembled vehicles, their futures uncertain. The echo of workers' tools and the buzz of machines were deafening. Every second seemed to count. I know, Musk finally said, his voice tight. But we don't have the luxury of failure. We either make this work, or Tesla's done. And I'm not giving up. Not now. Not after everything we've put into this. His words, though strong, felt hollow. He knew it was a gamble. The pressure was unbearable. But he couldn't back down. Not now. Tesla had become more than a company to him, it had become a symbol of everything he believed in: clean energy, innovation, the future. And yet, it was all slipping through his fingers. The weight of his responsibility felt heavier than ever, and as he glanced around at his team, exhausted, overworked, on the brink of burnout, he wondered if they'd have the strength to continue. What was the price of success? And how much further could they push before everything came crashing down? As Elon stood there, the dark reality of Tesla's situation settled in. He wasn't just fighting for his company, he was fighting for his dream. And right now, that dream was on the verge of vanishing. It was a moment of reckoning. The breaking point had arrived. The days blurred together. The relentless grind of production, the endless meetings with investors, the sleepless nights. Musk barely had time to think about anything other than Tesla's survival. Every morning, he would wake up to a barrage of emails and calls, all demanding answers, all filled with panic and doubt. "Elon, we need more results. The Model 3 isn't scaling the way we need it to," his CFO, Deepak, would say on one of their daily calls. "We're almost out of cash." Each call felt like a punch to the gut. Elon had been through the ringer before. SpaceX had almost gone bankrupt in its early days, but this felt different. Tesla was his vision. It wasn't just another tech company, it was the future of clean energy. If Tesla failed, it wasn't just a loss of money, it was the collapse of the very idea he had fought for. Musk's stress began to take a physical toll. He hadn't been sleeping much, often passing out on the office couch or in one of the conference rooms. But despite his exhaustion, there was a fire in him that refused to die. He wasn't going to let Tesla go down without a fight. In the mornings, he would meet with the engineering team. They were working round the clock, struggling to streamline the Model 3 production line, but the challenges were endless. The battery packs were delayed, the robots weren't syncing properly, and the pressure to hit the production targets was suffocating. With every failure, the possibility of bankruptcy loomed closer. "We need to automate more," Elon said one morning during a meeting with Jerome and the engineers. He wiped his tired eyes, the weight of the decision hanging over him. "This is the only way we're going to scale." "Elon, the costs," Jerome hesitated, his concern clear. "We're already running at a loss. More automation will only add to the burn rate." "I know," Musk replied, cutting him off. "But if we don't do it now, we'll be out of time. We have no choice." It was a risky move. The automation would require expensive upgrades to the factory, and the transition was bound to cause more delays. But Musk was desperate. He could feel the walls closing in. As the days passed, the tension on the factory floor reached a breaking point. The workers were tired, too tired. They were dedicated, but they were humans, not machines. Elon knew this, but there was little room for sympathy in times like this. The mission was bigger than any individual. The mission was about the future of electric vehicles, about proving that sustainable energy could work on a global scale. During one late-night session, after another round of production failures, Elon made a decision that shocked everyone around him. "I'm moving into the factory," Musk declared to his team. "From now on, I'm sleeping here. If we're going to make this work, we need everyone all in. No exceptions." His voice was unwavering. The factory was his home now, at least until Tesla was out of the woods. His team looked at him, startled by the commitment. But it was clear that Musk wasn't going to ask them to do something he wasn't willing to do himself. And so, Elon Musk did something that would become the stuff of legend. He moved his office to the factory floor, spending nights surrounded by assembly lines and engineers, working side by side with them. He slept on a cot in a makeshift room, barely enough space to stretch his legs, but it didn't matter. Musk wasn't going to let Tesla slip into oblivion on his watch. The hours bled into one another. Musk barely remembered what day it was anymore. He had become a ghost, a mere shadow of himself, constantly on the move, troubleshooting problems, pushing the engineers, and trying to come up with solutions to the mounting crises. "Elon, we need more parts," one of the managers said in the midst of a breakdown in the supply chain. "The suppliers are telling us we're too small to get the volume we need." "Then we find new suppliers," Elon replied flatly. "We don't stop." With each new obstacle, Musk's resolve hardened. He pushed his team harder, longer, expecting them to keep pace with his own relentless drive. It wasn't always pretty. There were moments of deep frustration. Screaming matches. Yet, through it all, his team began to see something in him, a determination that was unbreakable. They weren't just building cars. They were building the future, and Musk was their captain. Still, the pressure was mounting from all sides. Investors were getting nervous. Media outlets were calling Tesla the next Kodak, a dinosaur doomed to extinction. And Elon, despite his public bravado, was starting to feel the weight of it all. Late one night, when the factory was still buzzing with activity, Elon sat alone in his office. The light from his desk lamp illuminated the numbers on the screen in front of him, numbers that showed Tesla's cash reserves dwindling faster than he could keep up. A sinking feeling spread through his chest. If Tesla didn't make it, it would be more than just another failed company. It would be the end of the dream he had worked his entire life for, the dream of making the world a better place through sustainable energy. In that moment, he realized something crucial. There was no going back. There were no safety nets anymore. He had already gone all in, and it was now or never. "We're going to make this work," Musk muttered to himself, the only sound in the empty office. The doubt that had crept in began to fade, replaced by a single, burning thought. Failure was not an option. The battle for Tesla's survival was far from over, but one thing was clear: Elon Musk wasn't going down without a fight. The clang of machines, the whirring of robots, and the constant hum of busy workers had become the soundtrack of Elon Musk's life. This was no longer just a job for him, it was an all-consuming mission. As he lay on the cot, his body aching from the long hours, he couldn't help but feel a sense of purpose that, despite everything, still burned brightly within him. The factory was more than just a place of assembly, it was now the very heart of Tesla's survival. And Musk, in his relentless drive, had made it his home. Elon was no longer a distant figure giving orders from his office. He was in the trenches, working side by side with the engineers and factory workers, just as dedicated, just as exhausted. It was a radical shift. He had gone from being the high-flying CEO to becoming a full-time problem solver, constantly on his feet, looking for solutions, finding ways to make everything work. He woke up before dawn every day, strolling into the factory floor with a cup of coffee in hand, wearing the same clothes he had worn the day before. His face, a mixture of determination and exhaustion, showed just how far he was willing to go to keep Tesla alive. His presence in the factory was no longer a symbol of leadership but a rallying cry to the team. The workers, once skeptical, began to believe in the possibility of survival. They saw Elon's commitment, his unwillingness to give up even when the odds seemed impossible. It wasn't just his company anymore, it was their company. Together, they were all in this fight. Musk had made that clear, and his actions proved it. The factory floor, once chaotic and disorganized, slowly began to shift. The team started pushing out the cars faster, with more precision. The new automation processes, though costly, were beginning to show signs of efficiency. Machines that had previously malfunctioned were finally humming along, working in sync. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. One afternoon, as Musk walked through the assembly line, he saw Jerome and his team working frantically, trying to troubleshoot a bottleneck in the production process. The lines weren't running as smoothly as they should, and it was holding up progress. Musk didn't hesitate. He walked right up to the group, pointed to the problem, and began suggesting solutions. "What if we reconfigure the robots here and switch this component over to this machine? It could speed things up." Jerome paused, looking at Musk with a mix of surprise and admiration. "That could actually work. Let's give it a try." Musk stayed with them, watching over the adjustments, helping as best as he could. In that moment, he wasn't the CEO. He was just another part of the team, working towards the same goal. And, for the first time in months, there was a glimmer of hope that they might just pull this off. But despite the progress, the pressure remained. Musk couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that there was always one more obstacle, one more setback waiting around the corner. One late evening, as Elon sat alone in the factory office, his phone buzzed with a message from his board. It was a stark reminder that the clock was ticking. "Elon, we need results now. If we don't meet the next deadline, we may lose our funding. We're not sure how much longer we can hold out." Musk stared at the message for a moment. He knew what was at stake. If Tesla didn't meet the next production target, the company could be finished. And with the way things were going, it wasn't clear if they would make it. But Elon had never been one to back down from a challenge. There was always a way to make things work, even if it meant pushing himself and his team beyond their limits. "Tell them we'll make the deadline," Musk muttered to himself, feeling the weight of the promise he just made. "Tell them we'll hit our targets, no matter what it takes." His voice was steady, though inside, doubt threatened to creep in. But Elon refused to let fear dictate his actions. His resolve was ironclad. He grabbed a set of blueprints from his desk and made his way back to the factory floor, where engineers were working late into the night. The lights were dim, and the air smelled of oil and metal, but Musk could see the spark of determination in the workers' eyes. They were just as tired as he was, but they were willing to go the distance. "All right, guys," Musk said, rallying the team. "We've got a deadline to meet, and we're going to make it happen. I'm not leaving until we do." As he spoke, there was a sudden shift in the atmosphere. The team, already working at full capacity, dug even deeper. They pushed harder. Musk, in turn, pushed them harder. They were all in it together now, bound by the belief that they could make it. In the days that followed, Tesla's factory transformed into a battleground. Elon spent hours each day moving between different sections, overseeing every detail, making adjustments wherever possible. The lines were getting smoother, the workers were more efficient, and most importantly, there was a renewed sense of purpose. Musk was no longer just a CEO barking orders from above. He was a leader in the trenches, and the workers could feel that energy. But the battle wasn't over. They were making progress, but it still wasn't enough. Every time they reached a new milestone, another challenge arose. New technical glitches, production delays, and supply chain issues kept surfacing. Yet, with each setback, Musk's resolve grew stronger. He refused to let Tesla fall. Late one night, after hours of frantic work, Musk stood in front of the Model 3 assembly line. The car, once a symbol of Tesla's hopes and dreams, was now a symbol of their fight for survival. "We can do this," Musk said, more to himself than anyone else. "We will make this happen." His words weren't just a mantra. They were a promise. And, slowly but surely, Tesla was beginning to deliver on that promise. The factory floor wasn't just a place of production anymore. It was the heartbeat of Tesla's fight to survive, and Elon Musk had staked everything, his wealth, his future, and his soul, on its success. And in that moment, despite the exhaustion and the pressure, there was a flicker of hope. Perhaps they would make it after all. The days blurred together in a haze of exhaustion, determination, and relentless pressure. Each passing hour felt like a victory and a defeat all at once. Elon Musk's body had grown accustomed to the grueling pace, but his mind, sharp and driven, had become a battlefield. The factory floor, once chaotic and filled with doubt, was now buzzing with a renewed sense of purpose. The workers, exhausted but determined, had rallied behind him. Together, they were pushing forward, driven by the promise of success, or perhaps the fear of failure. But for Elon, the stakes had long ago shifted. This wasn't just about Tesla anymore. It wasn't just about electric cars or clean energy. It was about his own survival. He had given everything for this company. His wealth, his time, his energy, nothing had been left untouched. But as the Model 3 production line began to show signs of improvement, something darker was lurking in the back of Musk's mind. Was it enough? He had promised his team, his investors, and himself that they would make it. But despite the increasing momentum, the looming deadline was a constant reminder that time was running out. Investors were getting restless. Media outlets were calling for his head. And the world was watching, waiting for Tesla's inevitable collapse or miraculous recovery. On the factory floor, Elon was a man possessed. He worked late into the night, going over every detail, every component. It wasn't just about hitting numbers anymore. It was about proving something deeper, proving that he could overcome the odds, that Tesla was more than just an idea. But the toll it took was evident. One night, as he sat in his office, reviewing the latest batch of production data, a sudden pang of dread gripped him. His phone buzzed again. It was from his CFO, Deepak. He opened the message, his heart sinking with every word. "Elon, we're out of cash. We don't have enough to make it through the next payroll. If we can't make a deal or secure more funding within the next 48 hours, we're finished." Musk stared at the screen. The words felt like a punch to the gut. This was it. He had spent everything, the last of his wealth, the last of his energy, the last of his resolve, and now, it wasn't enough. The reality of failure crashed down on him, heavier than the weight of any challenge he had faced before. Elon stood up, pacing around the small room, feeling a sense of panic rising in his chest. He had been here before, on the brink of collapse, about to lose it all. But this time, there was something different. Tesla wasn't just a company anymore. It was his life. His soul. His dream. How could he let it fail? He stumbled back to the factory floor, his legs feeling heavy with the weight of the moment. As he walked through the aisles, the workers barely acknowledged him, each one lost in their own struggle to keep up. But to Elon, it was all moving in slow motion, as though the whole world was fading around him. He found Jerome, who was hunched over a blueprint, trying to solve yet another problem. "Jerome," Elon said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We're out of cash. We might not make it." Jerome looked up, his face filled with a mixture of frustration and concern. He knew the stakes. He had seen the late nights, the pressure, the strain that Musk had been under. But he also saw the fire in Musk's eyes, the same fire that had started Tesla in the first place. "Do you want me to stop?" Jerome asked, his voice softer than usual. "We've been pushing so hard, but if you need to take a step back, we'll manage." Elon shook his head. There was no stepping back. "No, we keep pushing. We push until we can't anymore." He turned and walked to the production line, standing in front of the half-assembled Model 3. The car that had been his dream was now a symbol of everything he had worked for. His pride, his failure, his hope. In that moment, something shifted inside him. He wasn't going to let it end like this. Not on a failure. Not after everything he had sacrificed. The pain, the uncertainty, the exhaustion, all of it had to mean something. There had to be a way forward. "I'm not giving up," Elon said, more to himself than anyone else. His voice cracked, but there was a strength in it that hadn't been there before. The workers around him heard it. They looked up, sensing a change in their leader. Elon wasn't just their CEO anymore. He was the embodiment of their fight. He walked up to one of the assembly workers, a young woman whose name he barely knew but whose dedication he had seen day in and day out. "How are we looking?" he asked, his voice steady. "We're getting there," she replied, glancing at the nearly completed Model 3. "But we still need time. The components aren't syncing right." "Then we make the time," Musk said. "And we keep pushing." For the first time in days, he wasn't thinking about deadlines or investor meetings or the threat of bankruptcy. He was thinking about what mattered most, the people who had trusted him, the workers who had given everything to make Tesla a reality. "We will make it," Musk said again, louder now, more certain than ever. "I'm not going to let this fail." The words echoed through the factory, reverberating in the hearts of everyone within earshot. They had seen their leader on the brink of breaking, but in that moment, Elon Musk became something more than a CEO. He became the embodiment of perseverance, the one who would lead them to the edge of the impossible and pull them back from the brink of collapse. The clock was still ticking, the deadline still looming. But for the first time in what felt like forever, there was a renewed sense of possibility in the air. Musk wasn't just fighting for his company anymore. He was fighting for his dream, and this time, he would make sure it didn't slip through his fingers. He was ready to fight back, no matter the cost. The days that followed were a blur of hard work, unwavering focus, and a relentless will to survive. Elon Musk was no longer just the visionary behind Tesla, he was the very spirit that held the company together. Each moment on the factory floor felt like an intense battle, but Musk's commitment to the cause was clear. His vision was the light guiding them through the storm, and now, there was no turning back. Elon had become a figure of near-mythic resolve. His exhaustion was evident in his tired eyes, the lines on his face deepening with every sleepless night. But there was a fire in him that refused to be extinguished. He spent nearly every waking hour at the factory, side by side with the workers and engineers. He walked the floor, providing solutions, offering encouragement, and problem-solving with a speed that only someone like him could manage. But this wasn't just about fixing a car anymore. This was about saving Tesla. It was about salvaging a dream that had seemed on the verge of extinction. And Elon Musk wasn't going to let it die. The production numbers were climbing slowly but steadily. They were reaching milestones that just weeks before had seemed impossible. But despite all the progress, the company still didn't have the cash to make it through the next few weeks. Investors were impatient, and the media were circling like vultures, waiting for Tesla to falter. It wasn't just the production problems that kept Elon up at night. It was the financial reality of the situation. There was a very real possibility that the company would run out of money before they could turn things around. He had already poured millions of his own money into the business, and every day he was keeping the company afloat with a thin thread. One afternoon, after a long meeting with his board, Musk walked out of the conference room feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. He stepped outside, his breath cold in the winter air, and looked up at the sky. It felt as if everything he had worked for, the future of Tesla, the dream of sustainable energy, was all hanging in the balance. He had been here before, facing overwhelming odds. But this time, it felt different. The stakes had never been higher. Musk knew that the only way Tesla could survive was to secure one last round of funding. The problem was that the investors were losing faith. They had watched Tesla struggle for years, and the skepticism had grown too strong to ignore. They needed results, immediate results, if they were going to stay on board. Elon had one card left to play. A meeting was scheduled with some of the most influential investors in Silicon Valley. This was their final chance. If they couldn't secure the necessary funding, it would be game over. Elon walked into the meeting room, his mind spinning with numbers, plans, and backup strategies. He couldn't afford to look desperate. He had to be convincing, confident, and above all, clear. He needed to make them see the potential in Tesla, not just the company it was today, but the company it could become. As he stood before the room of investors, Elon didn't start with financial figures or production reports. He started with the vision, the very core of why Tesla existed. He spoke about the future, about the revolution Tesla could lead in clean energy and electric vehicles. He painted a picture of a world where Tesla wasn't just a car company but a sustainable energy giant, changing the way people lived and worked. For a moment, the room was quiet, filled with the weight of his words. Elon wasn't just selling a company, he was selling a dream. And, for the first time in a long while, the investors seemed to buy into it. After a tense silence, one of the investors finally spoke. "Elon, we're not blind to the numbers. We see the potential. But can you actually deliver?" Elon took a deep breath. "Yes," he said, his voice steady. "I'll deliver." The rest of the meeting was a blur of discussions, negotiations, and last-minute adjustments. But in the end, it was clear that the investors had made up their minds. Tesla would receive the funding it desperately needed to survive. It was enough to get them through the next phase of production, and possibly to the point where they could stand on their own. Musk walked out of the room, his legs weak with exhaustion but his mind sharp and clear. He had done it. Tesla had been given a lifeline, and now, it was up to him to keep the momentum going. But that wasn't the end of the journey. No, this was just the beginning of a new chapter for Tesla. It would take everything he had, every ounce of strength, every bit of ingenuity, every moment of focus, to ensure that the company could rise from the ashes and become the powerhouse he had always believed it could be. As the days turned into weeks, Tesla's production numbers surged. The Model 3, the car that had once seemed like an impossible dream, was now rolling off the assembly lines at a rate that surpassed even their most optimistic expectations. Elon wasn't just a leader now. He was the embodiment of persistence and the face of the impossible becoming possible. The workers were exhausted but proud. They had given everything they had, and they had seen the result of their efforts. They had pulled Tesla back from the brink of collapse, and now, they were witnessing the birth of something revolutionary. And as for Elon, he could finally take a breath. The pressure didn't disappear, but it had shifted. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, it felt like Tesla had a future that, for all its struggles and setbacks, was worth fighting for. As he walked through the factory one last time that evening, a sense of peace settled over him. The dream was alive. He had saved Tesla, not just for himself, but for the world. And, in the end, that was the greatest victory of all. He looked out over the factory floor, where his team worked tirelessly, and he felt a deep sense of pride. It wasn't just about building electric cars anymore. It was about creating something that would change the world for the better. And as long as he had breath in his body, he would continue to fight for that vision. "Let's keep going," he whispered to himself. "We're just getting started." And with that, Elon Musk and Tesla took their first steps into a new future, one where the impossible was no longer out of reach. The days following Tesla's miraculous recovery were filled with tension, but also a quiet satisfaction that had eluded Elon Musk for so long. The factory buzzed with a renewed sense of purpose. The workers, once weary and uncertain, now moved with the confidence of a team that knew they were part of something extraordinary. Musk walked the floor more often, his presence a reminder of what they had overcome together, and what they still had to achieve. The first signs of hope had come when the Model 3 production line finally reached full capacity. The car that had once been a symbol of struggle was now the centerpiece of Tesla's revival. But the road to redemption was never easy. The investors who had backed Musk were watching closely, waiting for signs of real, sustained growth. The media, ever hungry for a story, began to shift their focus from doubt to cautious optimism. Musk knew that the next few months would be critical. He had won a battle, but the war was far from over. One evening, Elon sat at his desk in his office, looking over the latest production reports. The numbers were better than they had ever been. But as his eyes scanned the figures, a familiar anxiety crept in. Was it enough? Musk's mind flashed back to the darkest days when he had thought Tesla was finished. The uncertainty, the sleepless nights, the constant worry that his dreams would crumble beneath him. He had come so close to losing everything, and yet, against all odds, he had turned it around. But the question still lingered, could he truly lead Tesla to long-term success? In that moment, the weight of it all felt overwhelming. The pressure wasn't just from external forces, investors, the media, the public, it was internal. It was the pressure Musk had placed on himself. He had always been driven by a desire to push the boundaries of what was possible. But he also knew that this journey wasn't just about him anymore. It was about his team, his family, and the millions of people who believed in Tesla's vision for a cleaner, more sustainable world. He couldn't afford to fail again. The next morning, Elon was back on the factory floor, moving from station to station, inspecting each part of the Model 3 assembly line. The employees greeted him with nods and smiles, but they could see the determination in his eyes. Elon Musk wasn't just a CEO to them, he was the person who had led them through the fire and brought them back from the brink. "Everything on track?" Elon asked, his voice calm but focused. "Everything's moving faster now," Jerome said, smiling. "We've got the momentum, Elon. We're ahead of schedule." Elon nodded, but he didn't feel the relief he expected. He didn't want to let his guard down just yet. This was only the beginning of a new phase for Tesla. It wasn't enough to be ahead of schedule. They had to stay ahead, and continue to innovate. As he walked the factory floor, Musk found himself reflecting on everything that had brought him to this point. The countless risks he had taken, the sacrifices, the moments of despair, and, of course, the people who had supported him along the way. The dream was never about money. It was never about being the richest man in the world. It had always been about changing the world for the better, about creating something that could outlast him, something that could help shape the future. The success of Tesla, he realized, wasn't about proving himself to anyone. It was about proving that a sustainable future was possible, and that it was worth fighting for. He had been willing to risk everything to make that future a reality. And now, as Tesla began to flourish, Musk had a deeper understanding of what success truly meant. It wasn't about reaching a certain financial milestone or hitting a production goal. It was about building something that could endure, something that could have a lasting impact on society. One evening, as the sun set over the factory, Musk stood outside and looked at the Model 3s rolling off the assembly line. He saw more than just cars, he saw a vision coming to life. This was just the beginning of something much bigger. Tesla's impact on the world was growing, and the dream he had been chasing for so many years was no longer a distant idea. It was real. As he walked back into the factory, Elon was greeted by his team. There was a new energy in the air, a sense of pride and camaraderie that hadn't existed before. They had made it through the darkest days, and now they were on the verge of something greater than they had ever imagined. Elon looked around at the people who had stood by him through it all, the engineers, the assembly workers, the leaders who had refused to give up when things seemed hopeless. Together, they had pulled off the impossible. "We did it," he said quietly, his voice filled with both gratitude and exhaustion. "But we're not done yet. We have to keep pushing." The room filled with nods of agreement. Everyone knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they were ready. They had proved to themselves that they could weather any storm. They had defied the odds, and now they were more committed than ever to making Tesla a success. Elon Musk smiled, looking at the team who had helped turn his dream into a reality. It wasn't just about electric cars anymore. It was about a movement, an idea that could change the world. And for the first time in years, Musk felt a sense of peace. The struggle, the exhaustion, the setbacks, none of it mattered anymore. They had survived, and now they were ready for the future. The road ahead was still uncertain, but with a team like this, Elon Musk knew that Tesla would not only survive, it would thrive. And as he looked out at the horizon, he realized that his own journey had come full circle. The man who had once slept on the factory floor, facing the end of his dream, had now risen with the company that would change the world forever. Tesla's future was no longer in question. It was secure. And the dream that Elon Musk had once carried in his heart, against all odds, was now a reality. Tesla's revival had been a story for the books, but the true test was just beginning. With the Model 3 production ramping up and the company's finances finally stabilizing, Elon Musk and his team were determined to make sure Tesla didn't just survive, it would thrive. As the world began to take notice, Tesla's story began to captivate not just Silicon Valley, but the entire globe. Elon often said that the company's mission was to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. It wasn't just a catchy slogan, it was the guiding principle behind every decision, every innovation. With that mission in mind, Musk and his team set their sights on expanding Tesla's footprint. Tesla's gigafactories were growing, their production capabilities increasing exponentially. But the challenge wasn't just about making more cars. It was about creating a sustainable energy ecosystem, one that included not only electric vehicles, but also solar products and energy storage solutions. The first major step was the launch of the Tesla Energy division. Musk believed in a future where solar energy would be the dominant power source for homes and businesses. And with the success of the Model 3, Tesla had the resources to make that vision a reality. The solar roof, a product that combined solar panels with a sleek roofing material, was unveiled with much fanfare. Musk was enthusiastic, but he knew there was still much work to be done. But Tesla's growth wasn't just about products. It was about culture, too. The company's success was built on a foundation of risk-taking, constant innovation, and an unwavering belief that they were working towards something bigger than just profits. Elon was more than a CEO, he was the heart and soul of the company, and his passion for the mission was contagious. As Tesla expanded its reach across the globe, it faced new challenges. Competition in the electric vehicle market was intensifying. Traditional automakers were stepping up their game, and new players were emerging in the electric space. But Musk remained unshaken. He knew Tesla's edge wasn't just in its technology, it was in its ability to adapt, to innovate faster than anyone else in the industry. The Model S, Model X, and Model 3 had already earned the company a devoted following, but Tesla's future depended on continuing to push the envelope. Elon knew they needed something that could cement their place in the market for years to come. That's when the concept of the Cybertruck was born. At first, the Cybertruck was seen as a gamble. Its futuristic design, sharp angles, stainless steel body, and an almost otherworldly appearance, was polarizing. Critics scoffed, saying it looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. But Musk wasn't deterred. He believed in the concept and in its potential to revolutionize the truck market. In November 2019, Tesla revealed the Cybertruck to the world. The unveiling didn't go as planned. During the demonstration, the truck's unbreakable windows were smashed, and the media had a field day with the mishap. But Musk was unfazed. "It's a prototype," he said, and the Cybertruck quickly became one of the most talked-about vehicles in the world. Despite the rough start, the Cybertruck captured the imagination of consumers. Over 200,000 reservations were placed within days, proving that Tesla's audience was ready for something bold and different. The excitement surrounding the truck made it clear that Tesla wasn't just a car company, it was becoming a cultural force, influencing not only the automotive industry but also the way people thought about technology, sustainability, and the future. As Tesla's production ramped up, so did the scrutiny. Elon was used to the spotlight, but as the company grew, so did the challenges. Investors were watching closely, and the pressure to continue innovating and delivering was immense. Yet, even in the face of mounting pressure, Musk remained confident. He had been through the fire once before, and he knew what it took to survive and thrive. The launch of the Cybertruck, combined with continued progress in energy solutions, sent a clear message to the world: Tesla wasn't just a comeback story. It was the future of transportation and energy. And while there were still obstacles to overcome, the company had built something that would outlast the doubters, the skeptics, and the critics. With the world now watching intently, Elon Musk was no longer just a Silicon Valley entrepreneur. He had become a global icon. His ability to take risks, his unwavering commitment to his vision, and his relentless pursuit of innovation had made him one of the most influential figures of his generation. But for Elon, the accolades and attention didn't matter. He wasn't in this for fame or fortune. His focus remained on the mission, changing the world, one car, one solar panel, and one battery at a time. And as the world embraced Tesla's vision, Elon's determination to push the boundaries of what was possible only grew stronger. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but Musk knew one thing for certain: Tesla was just getting started. As he looked out over the sprawling gigafactory in Nevada, where millions of electric vehicles and batteries would eventually be produced, Elon couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. The impossible was now within reach. And as long as he could keep pushing, the future was wide open. "Let's do this," he said quietly to himself, a smile creeping across his face. "Let's change the world." And with that, the journey continued. The world was watching, and Tesla's story was only just beginning. As Tesla grew in prominence, so did the complexities that came with scaling a company of such magnitude. Elon Musk, once a man consumed by the struggle to keep Tesla alive, now found himself at the helm of an industry-defining company with a global footprint. While the excitement of success was intoxicating, the challenges were relentless, and Musk found himself in a constant balancing act between innovation, production, and public perception. Despite the impressive strides Tesla had made with the Model 3, the Model S, and the much-anticipated Cybertruck, there were numerous hurdles. The electric vehicle market, once a niche industry, was now attracting fierce competition from all corners of the automotive world. Established companies like Ford, Volkswagen, and General Motors began unveiling their own electric vehicles, with a level of sophistication and market penetration that Tesla had long dominated. In addition to increased competition, the global supply chain was facing disruptions, particularly in the wake of a world still grappling with the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic. There were shortages of critical materials such as lithium, which were essential for Tesla's battery technology. This shortage, combined with logistical bottlenecks and rising costs, created new pressure on Tesla's ability to meet demand and maintain profit margins. Musk had always prided himself on his ability to solve problems with speed and creativity, but the scale of these challenges was unprecedented. The stock market, once optimistic about Tesla's future, began to reflect the turbulence. Investors were nervous, and the company's valuation, which had once been skyrocketing, now fluctuated wildly in response to news and events that were often beyond Musk's control. Despite the mounting external pressures, Musk remained fiercely committed to Tesla's mission. He worked tirelessly, often to the point of exhaustion, to find solutions. However, the more he threw himself into the task of steering Tesla through these turbulent waters, the more his personal life began to suffer. His relationships, especially with those closest to him, became strained. He was a man on a singular mission, but the cost of that singular focus was becoming increasingly evident. One of the most challenging moments came when Tesla's autopilot system, a key differentiator for the company, became the center of controversy. There were several high-profile accidents involving Tesla vehicles that were operating on autopilot, and the media had a field day. Despite Musk's belief in the technology and the company's commitment to improving it, the headlines painted a different picture. Tesla's self-driving technology wasn't ready for prime time, and people were starting to question its safety. Elon was used to being misunderstood, but this time the stakes were higher. Autopilot was a crucial part of Tesla's long-term vision, and any setback in this area could delay the company's mission of building fully autonomous vehicles. The criticism felt like a punch to the gut, especially when Tesla's critics argued that Musk had been too quick to push the technology out without fully testing its limits. Tesla's PR department was working overtime to manage the fallout, but Elon was increasingly disillusioned with the media. He had always been candid and transparent about Tesla's progress, but the constant barrage of negative headlines was beginning to take its toll. The world, it seemed, was waiting for Tesla to fail, and they weren't shy about reporting every hiccup along the way. And yet, through it all, Musk pressed on. Late one night, as he sat alone in his office, surrounded by reports and projections, he realized something. Failure was no longer an option. Tesla had come too far, and there were too many people depending on the company's success. It wasn't just the employees or the investors, it was the millions of customers who believed in what Tesla stood for. They believed in a future of sustainable energy, of a world where electric cars and solar panels were the norm, not the exception. Elon stood up from his desk, staring out the window. He had been here before. The doubts, the setbacks, the naysayers, they were all part of the journey. But they would not define the outcome. He had a responsibility, not just to Tesla, but to the world. The mission to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy was bigger than any obstacle, bigger than any crisis. Focus on the bigger picture, Musk muttered to himself. Don't let this derail the long-term goal. The next day, he called a meeting with his leadership team. They needed to regroup and focus. There were problems to solve, but there were also opportunities to be seized. Musk reiterated his vision for Tesla's future and emphasized the importance of sticking to the company's core mission. They would overcome the autopilot controversy by doubling down on research, development, and safety. They would continue pushing the boundaries of electric vehicle production, even in the face of supply chain disruptions. They would build the future of transportation, and they would do it on their terms. We've been counted out before, Musk told the team. We've been told we couldn't do it. But look where we are now. Let's keep going. Let's stay focused on the mission. We're not just building cars, we're building the future. The leadership team, inspired by Musk's resolve, rallied together. They knew the road ahead would not be easy, but they also knew they had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to change the world. The stakes had never been higher, but their commitment had never been stronger. Tesla's journey had entered a new phase. The challenges were more significant than ever, but Elon Musk knew one thing for certain: they would rise to meet them. The world had its doubts, but Tesla had proven time and again that they were capable of the impossible. And Musk? He was ready to face whatever came next. Because no matter how stormy the waters were, he believed in the vision, and he would fight to see it realized. The future of sustainable energy depended on it. And there was no turning back. The road ahead was still full of challenges, but with each step forward, the team at Tesla grew more resilient. They knew that the storm would pass, and when it did, they would be stronger than ever. The challenges that had once threatened to unravel Tesla now felt like distant memories, though their lessons were deeply embedded in the company's DNA. The world had witnessed Tesla's transformation from a fragile startup teetering on the edge of collapse to a powerhouse of innovation, defining the future of transportation and energy. And yet, for Elon Musk, the most significant battles had never been about sales figures or stock prices, it had always been about making the impossible possible. The years of sleepless nights, the endless meetings, the pressure, and the personal sacrifices had all led to this moment. Tesla was no longer a company struggling to survive. It was an empire in the making, and its foundation was built on one unwavering principle: the pursuit of sustainability. By 2025, Tesla had achieved what many thought was impossible: a fully electric fleet that was both affordable and accessible to the masses. The Model 3 had become the best-selling electric vehicle in the world, and the Cybertruck was dominating a new market segment: an all-electric truck with a futuristic design that seemed to redefine what a vehicle could be. The Model S and Model X were continuously evolving, setting the standard for luxury electric vehicles. But it wasn't just about the cars anymore. Tesla's energy division had grown at an unprecedented rate, with solar energy solutions and the Powerwall battery system now found in homes and businesses across the globe. The company had essentially redefined the energy landscape, making sustainable energy not just a dream, but a practical, accessible reality for millions. Musk's vision for Tesla had evolved over the years. He hadn't just wanted to build cars, he wanted to create a new ecosystem, a world where electric cars, solar power, and energy storage all worked seamlessly together to reduce humanity's reliance on fossil fuels. And in 2025, that vision was finally taking shape. Despite the triumphs, Elon's journey wasn't without its critics. There were still skeptics who questioned whether Tesla's success was sustainable, whether its growth could continue at the same pace. Traditional automakers had increased their efforts to challenge Tesla's dominance, but none had come close to matching its innovation or vision. Every challenge Tesla faced only seemed to reinforce its leadership position in the electric vehicle and energy industries. But for Elon, the most significant change had come within himself. The years of relentless work had taken a toll on his personal life, his relationships had been strained, and his health had suffered. But through it all, he had never lost sight of the bigger picture. He had always known that true change wouldn't come easy, but he had also learned to find balance. He had grown more thoughtful in his leadership, more attuned to the needs of his team and the world around him. One evening, as Musk sat in the Tesla Gigafactory in Texas, watching a new line of vehicles being produced with precision and speed, he allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. The factory hums with activity, and employees, now seasoned veterans, moved with efficiency and purpose. The vision he'd held for so many years was no longer a distant dream, it was a thriving reality. He had built a company that had become a force for change, and it was clear that Tesla's impact would be felt for generations. "Elon, we've come a long way," said Jerome, Tesla's chief engineer, as he walked into the room. Musk turned, a tired but satisfied smile crossing his face. "We have, haven't we?" Elon replied, standing up from his chair. "And we're just getting started. Every time we hit a milestone, it feels like we're changing the world," Jerome said, looking out over the production floor. "It's incredible." "It is," Musk said. "But it's not just about the cars, or the batteries, or even the energy. It's about the mission. It's about showing the world that sustainable energy is the future. And now, we've made it real. People are driving electric cars. They're powering their homes with solar. They're changing the way they think about energy. It's going to take time, but you've made it happen, Elon," Jerome said. Musk paused, taking a deep breath. The road had been long and filled with challenges. He had sacrificed so much, his time, his health, and much of his personal life. But the end result was undeniable. Tesla was more than a company, it was a movement. A movement that had proven that innovation, when paired with purpose, could transform the world. "We've made it," Musk said quietly, almost to himself. "But the real work is just beginning. We have to keep pushing. Keep innovating. We can't stop now." Elon's words carried the weight of someone who had experienced the highest highs and the lowest lows. He knew that the future was uncertain, but he was confident that Tesla's vision was on the right path. The world was ready for change, and Tesla had led the charge. As he walked out of the factory, looking out over the horizon where Tesla's Gigafactory stood as a symbol of what was possible, he realized that his journey had been more than just about building a company. It had been about creating a legacy, one that would outlast him, one that would continue to inspire future generations of innovators and dreamers. The challenges had been immense, but so had the rewards. Musk had turned Tesla from the brink of collapse into the driving force behind a global transformation. And though the world had once doubted him, they could no longer ignore what he had achieved. The future, it seemed, was bright. As Elon Musk gazed into the distance, he knew that Tesla's story was not just his own. It was a story of resilience, innovation, and the unwavering belief that a better world was possible. And as the sun set over the factory floor, he could see it clearly: the future was here, and it was electric.